Spring training baseball on SNY is presented by Citi. As this evening, the New York Mets host the Washington Nationals in Port St. Lucie, Florida at Tradition Field. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Ram Truck Month going on now. By Citi, proud sponsor of the New York Mets. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com for a free rate quote. And by Cadillac. Visit tristatecadillac.com for exceptional offers. And welcome aboard, everyone. Scott Braun along with Jim Duquette as David Wright makes his Grapefruit League debut in prime time for the New York Mets, Duke.
Yeah, a little different energy in the clubhouse today, Scott. When you look at it, David Wright, of course, the captain, going to be back in uniform. It's always good to see him back in there, but he's been delayed, obviously, dealing with his spinal stenosis. The schedule that the Mets have put together has him playing in tonight's game, and he's already had 8 at-bats on the backfields and the minor league fields trying to get his timing down. Tonight, same type of thing. He's going to face a tough pitcher in Lucas Giolito, one of the top prospects in the game, but this is part of that step, that progression that you're looking for with David Wright coming back, and this is still kind of uncertain grounds right now with him trying to figure out what he can do and what he can't do with that back issue.
And he will hit in the 2 spot tonight for the New York Mets. We also learned some news yesterday. Matt Harvey is pegged to be the opening day starter against the Kansas City Royals on April 3rd. Last year's opening day starter was Bartolo Colon, and he goes tonight.
Consistent Colon is what you call him, what you see out of him. We know what he's going to give you. 31, 32 starts if he gets there, 190, 200 innings. That's what he gave last year. The ERA and the 4, don't worry about the spring training earned run average. It's always a little high, but he's just going to get his work in. This year's a little bit different, though. You look at him giving starts until somewhere around June or July when Zach Wheeler is going to come back, and if everything goes well with the rest of the rotation, he'll slide into that bullpen. He pitched really well towards the end and into the postseason, so we'll see with Colon if he does get those 30 starts or if it's a little bit of a combination of both.
Now, there's no Bart Show at the plate for tonight's game, although he did hit a batting practice home run the other day for the Mets, and the Dusty Baker Show is in town this year for the Washington Nationals as he replaces manager Matt Williams.
Well, and general manager Mike Rizzo of the Nationals made this his first move this winter. When you look at what Dusty has done in his career, he turned the Giants around back in the day, 31-win difference. When he went to the Cubs, it was 21 wins better. When he went to the Reds, it was 19 runs better. The Nationals are hoping the same thing happens there. He's also going to hopefully get some more harmony in that clubhouse, at least what the Nationals are hoping.
He's got some new players on board like Ben Revere and Daniel Murphy, who's in the starting lineup for the Washington Nationals, as the temperatures are well into the 80s for the most heated rivalry in the National League East. The Mets and the Nats coming up. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Citi, proud sponsor of the New York Mets. By Drake's Cakes, who reminds you that Drake's Yankee Doodles are back, so listen to your craving and grab some today. By Verizon, better matters. And by Ford, for great deals on Ford cars, trucks, SUVs, and crossovers, visit TriStateFord.com. Well, in celebration of Mike Piazza's induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame, groups of 15 or more can purchase the Mike Piazza package, which includes a Piazza replica jersey and a field reserve ticket for $31 per person. For tickets, visit Mets.com/groups. And time now to check in around the majors, presented by Citi. Some injury news. The Rays are going to begin the season without their closer. Last year, All-Star Brad Boxberger, Brad Penny, and Rafael Soriano calling it a career. Then there's Madison Bumgarner, expected to make his next spring start. He missed his last start, rib and foot issues, and he's also a little lighter. Much less facial hair on Mr. Madison Bumgarner. The day has passed, and the Nats are in town to take on the Mets. We sail the first pitch from Bartolo Colon, making his third start. Let's take a look at the Toyota starting lineup for the visiting Washington Nationals. Michael Taylor at the top with some new additions. That includes Daniel Murphy hitting second and Stephen Drew batting third. Ryan Zimmerman getting some work at first base. Shortstops Danny Espinosa. It's a battle in the middle infield between a few players that we'll get into. And rounding out the order is the designated hitter and former Met, Matt Den Decker. This is start number 3 of the spring for Bartolo Colon.
Well, look for Colon to go around 5 innings or so today. Last start against the Cardinals didn't fare very well. 4 runs, 6 hits. Got a no decision there versus St. Louis. But, again, one of these guys that just getting his work in here. We're going to increase the pitch count again tonight and then throw it to the bullpen after that. Let's take a look at the Lexus Mets defense. The outfielders, Lagares in left. That's not a misprint. He's going to get some reps out there. Cespedes in center and Granderson in right. The infield around the diamond. David Wright, his first outing tonight at third. Wilmer Flores at short. Neil Walker at second. And Lucas Duda at first. Behind the plate, it's Kevin Plawecki today on the mound. The 42-year-old Bartolo Colon.
There's Mr. Wright. Not as a DH, third baseman right away in his first spring game. Sometimes teams like to ease their veterans back into the mix, but he's been batting all week. Cologne facing Michael Taylor, the leadoff hitter for the Nationals. First pitch in there for a called strike, and we are underway at Tradition Field. It's the only night game of the season in this spring training action for the Mets at home. Taylor turns 25 years old on March 26th. Dusty Baker mentioned him as his sixth man, making the basketball reference like James Harden on the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA back when he was with that squad. Shallow right field. In comes Granderson. That'll drop for a base hit for Taylor. And the leadoff man is aboard for the Nats. Some respect for Daniel Murphy in his first at-bat of the day.
It's a little weird still looking at him in Nationals red. Can't get quite used to that. We will eventually.
Terry Collins mentioned that it is still bizarre to see a different uniform, despite the Mets now playing the Nationals 3 times in the month of March.
Going to see it 3 more times here this spring, and then 19 during the regular season. So we haven't gotten used to it yet. As Taylor dives back in, you'll get used to it eventually, and certainly be cheering against him if it's not yet when the season gets going.
Different ballpark for Daniel Murphy to work with as a member of the Nationals. It's not going to help his lefty power hitting at Nats Park.
It's interesting. He's had a good batting average in that ballpark. You know, it's been good hitting. I talked to him about it the other day when I was up in Nats camp. Something about the background that he likes there on the hitting side, but he hasn't faced the Mets pitching, so that may impact it a little bit on the negative side for him.
He said he takes away the Nationals pitching staff, which is not easy to handle, but now has to face all of his former teammates.
He talked about talking to Ryan Zimmerman, some of the veteran hitters, to figure out how he can hit his former teammates. He had that perspective from second base, but not at the home plate.
0-1 sharply down the right field line. That's good for a base hit. Taylor wheeling his way to third, and he'll round third base. Michael Taylor coming home. The relay, Granderson, it's bobbled, and the first run of the game is scored by Michael Taylor thanks to the Daniel Murphy RBI double.
Well, Murph snuck this one right down the first baseline, out in front of this one. And just by Lucas Duda down the right field line, and the ball got stuck down in the corner there. Michael Taylor has real good speed, and he did not hesitate as he rounded third and hit it on home standing up.
2 batters and a run scored for the Nationals. That ball hit off the first base bag. That brings up Stephen Drew for the Nats.
Drew in the mix in that shortstop competition that Dusty Baker's trying to figure out. I think the front office would like to have the youngster Trey Turner in the mix, but Drew, certainly an accomplished shortstop. Saw him with the Yankees the last couple of years. Red Sox. He's had a down year offensively the last couple of seasons.
Just turned 33 years old on March 16th. Drew hits that solidly to right field. A lot of room to work with. He rounds first. Here comes Daniel Murphy easily. It's another RBI double for the Nationals off the bat of Stephen Drew, and they lead 2-0. 3 batters in against Cologne.
Well, already seeing some of the same type of stuff that we saw in Cologne's last start. Here looked like it was a changeup to Drew. He's out front of it, keeps it fair down the right field line for a stand-up double, and Cologne, his first 3 batters, has been a little bit up in the strike zone.
We learned yesterday that Matt Harvey is going to start on opening day. That job belonged to Bart last year. Despite a spring training ERA of 7.02, he ended up winning the contest last year.
Really, for a veteran like him, you can throw out the spring training stats, even though you're inclined to get a little concerned when you see that ERA over 6. But Cologne knows what it takes to get himself ready, and when the
adrenaline is going in the regular season, I don't worry as much about Colon as it may be somebody else. Maybe a rookie, I would be a little more concerned, but not the 42-year-old.
The first one against Detroit went okay. Second time against St. Louis, he was touched up. And now trouble in this inning against the Nats. It's a bloop shot into center field, and Ryan Zimmerman has a knock. Stephen Drew makes his way to third. Still no outs here in the first.
Well, Zimmerman got jammed here a little bit. You see the high leg raise. And the two-seamer comes in on his hands, but again, up in the strike zone. And that's 4 consecutive hitters here for Cologne. We're just not seeing an awful lot of life from the fastball. And the Nationals hitters are seeing it well right now.
Quick word from his backstop tonight, Kevin Plawecki, as Cologne gets ready to face Chris Heisey. Only 9 total pitches from Bart so far, producing 2 runs. Heisey likes that first pitch, shallow second. It's Neil Walker making the play.
Now there's Cologne getting that first one, a harmless fly ball. Walker going back on it. Get that first one here in the night game. See if he can settle down here and get a double play, get out of the inning.
And Duke, Danny Espinosa also involved in this middle infield battle. He's the starting shortstop tonight. He can play second base as well. Ian Desmond is gone, so there's time. But you mentioned Trey Turner is also a guy that we should see at some point this year.
Espinosa 118 games, mostly at second last year. He's come in, and the likely scenario is he's going to be the Nationals utility guy. But this is interesting because the general manager and the manager may not see eye to eye on this one. I think the GM has built it so that he's the utility guy, and Dusty Baker, the new guy, trying to keep peace in that clubhouse, is kind of leaning towards the veteran in Espinosa or Drew.
Count is 2-0 to Espinosa. Same story in the outfield. I mentioned Mike Taylor as his 6th man, his substitute off the bench. He said he'll get plenty of at-bats, but it was a down season and an injury-ravaged season for Jason Worth last year. Cologne's 2-0.
Only 88 games for Worth last year played, and when you look at the season that he had, 221 batting average, not a typical Jason Worth season. He's starting to get up there in age, turned 37 in May, so they have an interesting decision as well. Do you go with the veteran guy who's helped you along the way and see if he plays himself off the position, or risk a little bit of disharmony again, having him on the bench and having Taylor start?
How many feathers do you want to ruffle when you start your job in a clubhouse that had some turmoil last year?
And let's be honest, Dusty has been one of those guys that has gone with the veterans over his career. And it's when it's close, he goes with the veteran over the rookie. And he says he likes young players. But when you're coming over to do a new spot, it helps to have Kirby favor with the veterans.
Well struck, deep right. Granderson gives it a look. It's well over the wall and gone. That's a 3-run home run for Danny Espinosa. The Nationals jump ahead to a 5-0 lead off Bartolo Colon.
Well, you don't see that very often from Espinosa. Although he had 13 home runs last year in a limited time, but behind the count, Colon's had a hard time commanding his pitch there. Espinosa took the 3-1 pitch right over right field fence. This was more of a straight fastball. And Espinosa makes him pay.
Now another veteran in Reed Johnson at the plate. Just 1 out recorded by Colon so far. That was Heisey popping out to Walker.
Nationals have done this quickly. Only 15 pitches he's thrown.
And Johnson wasting no time. A roller over to Flores, who makes the 2nd out.
That's the one thing with Colon last year that you saw his numbers go up. The home run rate up over 10%, and that's usually a sign you're starting to see the decline. Now with Colon, you just never know. It means one of those things that could happen any time and any year when you get to his age. But I saw a few more balls go over the fence last year than what he's done in his career.
This is Jose Lobaton. The home run rate going up, but the walks continue to go down.
It's amazing. His walk rate is shade over 1. It's one of the best walk rates in the game.
Lobaton likes that pitch, curling left side and into the seats.
The other thing you see out of Colon is you see a lot of swings outside of the strike zone. That's the one thing that if you see him a lot, you're less inclined to expand the strike zone. He really works off of expanding the strike zone an awful lot. And so when you're facing the Nationals like he has over the past couple of years, you're not going to be swinging at those pitches out of the zone as much.
He started last year with a 40-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. Is he too stingy sometimes about not giving up a walk?
Can be a little too aggressive on occasion. I think that's where you rely on his veteran experience. And there's some big numbers right there. 4th best when it comes to strikeout per walk ratio. Now his strikeouts per 9 only 6, but as you mentioned, the walks a shade over 1.
He was number 1 in walks per 9 last season. Had that long stretch, almost 50 innings without giving up a walk, longest in Mets history.
Last year, that two-seam fastball, about 87, 88 miles per hour. That's a little less even today, the velocity on that two-seamer. He's a little unusual, though. He throws it between 50 and 60%, but it's a fly ball pitch. You usually don't see that. He had one of the highest fly ball rates of any starting pitcher that qualified in innings last year.
We've seen a ton of fly balls already. That's a called strike 3 to sit down Jose Lobaton. A rocky start for Bartolo Colon, giving up 5, including the Espinosa home run. And coming up, it is the Grapefruit League debut of David Wright, the third baseman, hitting in the 2 spot in the bottom of the 1st inning. And a glance at the Geico Mets starting lineup. Most of the regulars in there. Granderson at the top. And David Wright's Grapefruit League debut in 2016, hitting 2nd. Cespedes in center field. He was hit by a pitch against the Marlins yesterday on his wrist. He's just fine. Kevin Plawecki in at catcher instead of Travis d'Arnaud. And Lucas Giolito is not just the top prospect in the national system. He's one of the top pitching prospects in the sport.
Well, he is. And Scott, you know, he's a guy that will throw, and he's in this during the season 96 to about 100. He's got the hammer curveball. It's a plus pitch there. He's got 2 plus pitches. Mike Rizzo, the general manager, says he's not ready quite yet, but you can see him like maybe what the Mets did with Syndergaard. You may see the Nationals use him the same way this year.
He'll face Curtis Granderson to start. That's 94. He can get up to 99, 100.
He's down it back at 94 right now.
Well, he just learned a 2-seamer this spring training.
It's almost not even fair when you look at a guy. Here's a guy completely different than Colon. 6'6", 230, throwing in the prime of his career. Now, Colon used to throw that hard back in the day. Here's Giolito just coming on the scene, throwing anywhere from 94 to 98.
Selected 16th overall by the Nationals back in the 2012 draft. They essentially knew he was going to need Tommy John surgery, yet still forked up a signing bonus close to $3 million. 2-1 to Granderson, taken off the plate.
And one thing he's been working on has been his command. You see he's got that high leg raise. A little bit of a violent landing leg, stiff front leg there. And pitches against it on occasion. And one issue with him is he's at over 3 walks per 9. Not horrible, but you'd like to see it with his kind of stuff improve upon that. And he's talked to me just recently about making sure that his mechanics are in sync and more directional towards home plate. That's what he's been working on here the last year or so.
3-2 to Granderson, slapped on the ground to second base, and Daniel Murphy makes the play over to Ryan Zimmerman. The captain's back in action. His first official spring training at bat. He's been hitting on the minor league fields all week.
There's 1 hit and 8 at bats back there. He doesn't count that 1 hit back there. He wants to start fresh here on Major League side. We'll see what he does at first at bat.
First pitch through the whole right side. That's a base hit for David Wright.
Get that first one out of the way. That first at bat in the first pitch. A little bit of a shift here. Daniel Murphy was shaded towards the middle. And David takes the first pitch fastball. You see him set up on the outside part of the plate. Jose Lobaton, the catcher. And David puts a nice little swing on it. Not overly complicated with David right there, trying to make contact. And I think that's the type of swing you're going to see more of this year with that bat. The one thing Don Mattingly, manager of the Marlins, told me about this issue, which he battled as well, is the twisting and turning, the torque that you get in the back. You just can't quite swing the bat as aggressively as he did in the past.
Now it's Yoenis Cespedes. First at bat back last season. Turned into a home run for David Wright.
Turned out to be quite a return. I believe it was in Philly, that return. And the power is the one question I have about him this year. If you're going to see much power out of him, I don't think that you're going to see it.
Popped up right side. In comes Chris Heisey on the run. And that sits down Cespedes.
Let's take a look at the Ram Nationals defense, starting in the outfielder. Veteran Reed Johnson out there in left. The rookie, or the youngster, Michael Taylor in center. Chris Heisey, another veteran in right. Stephen Drew at third. Espinosa and Murphy up the middle. Ryan Zimmerman, the unofficial captain, at first. Lucas Giolito on the mound with Jose Lobaton behind the plate. He's their backup. Wilson Ramos is their main catcher.
So now it's Lucas Duda in the cleanup spot with David Wright on first. Yeah, that Philly game, when he came back and hit the home run, was part of a huge comeback win for the Mets. Wright that day ended up scoring 3 times. Mets had 8 home runs in that one. 16 runs scored, 20 hits, offensive explosion. It's like, welcome back. We got Cespedes. Now we have Wright. We're ready for the postseason.
Let's get back after it. David only played 38 games last year, hit 289. Lucas Duda with 27 home runs.
Big cut and a miss from Duda. Do you like
decent spring? You know, he hit 250 or so, hit a home run already. Got that first one out of the way, but Lucas takes a lot of grief here, you know, in Mets land. But he's one of those guys for me. You look at him making right around $4 million for the productivity. It's hard to match what he gives you on the offensive side.
Fits the mold of the organization, an on-base guy. Solved some of his troubles with southpaws last year. Better than the year before. Still a work in progress.
One of those things he has worked hard at. And talked to Kevin Long, the hitting coach. He said, you know, he also battled an oblique for most of the season last year. Didn't want to say anything.
And that was from overworking going back to the previous offseason. He took 1 million swings every day. They told him to settle down.
Yeah, career 247 is on base is a little over 350, about 100 points or so higher on the on base percentage side. That's one of the better on base percentages. You see his slugging, 9th best for first baseman in the major leagues.
Wright was off and running on the 3-2 pitch.
You know, the leg raise is something that you want to see a little bit more consistent Lucas Duda. And you see this raise is something that Kevin Long has been working with Lucas. He's reduced that leg raise about, he says, 3 or 4 inches. That even looks more than that to me. Lucas used to bring that front leg up almost to his waist. Now you're not seeing it anywhere near that height.
Ball 4 to Duda.
That usually helps with your timing. The less movement you have in your swing, the better timing you're going to have. And I think it will help him be more consistent at the plate. We've seen a lot of peaks and valleys with Lucas over the last year, and I'm looking for him to have a bigger and better year, maybe because he's reduced that leg raise.
He was even seeing pitches looking like himself in the postseason, but still can get himself into those long slumps. We've seen streakiness from Neil Walker in the past as well. I always mark on my notes for Neil Walker, look at him in July, because July is his month. Every year he starts to turn it up. Turns on this first pitch from Giolito, who will take the underhand toss. Apparently doesn't heat up in March. 5-0 Nationals over the Mets after 1. Former Met Matt Den Decker leads the upper half of the second inning for the Nationals, commanding a 5-0 lead. And the first pitch from Bartolo Colon is squared to center field. And that's the first out, recorded by Yoenis Cespedes out there instead of Juan Lagares, who's playing in left field tonight.
Yeah, Cespedes looked good on that ball. That's a line drive, not that easy to make an adjustment on, but got the right move. First step quickness. When he's focused, he's good in center field. And we saw on occasion last year, especially in the postseason, there were times where he wasn't quite paying attention and he didn't look as good. But the Mets really need him to play center field majority of the time for Conforto to be able to play left field and for their offense to click on all cylinders. Even though he said he would prefer to play left, Terry Collins has been doing the right thing, playing him in center.
If you're running the team, would it bother you that a player says he'd prefer to play in a different spot?
Doesn't bother me unless he doesn't want to play center field anymore and I paid him $27 million. Then it would bother me a little bit. Yeah, but I think that's where Terry, in his relationship with him last year, no one expected him to play center field. And remember, the word in scouting circles was he would only play left, so it was a little bit of a surprise that he was willing to play center field and really helped the Mets out.
Center field today for the Nationals is Michael Taylor, his second trip to the plate. Colon's 2-2 offering. Going the other way, deep right. Granderson racing towards the track. He'll give that a look, and it's gone. A solo home run for Michael Taylor. 6-0 Nationals off Bartolo Colon.
Well, you don't see that very often with Taylor. The power that he has mostly to the pull field. This one opposite field. Last year he had 14 homers. And this is a pitch. You see the two-seamer grip, trying to locate it down and away, and it's up over the plate. Michael Taylor hits one out. Colon still really all not that affected, is he? That emotion.
That's his poker face. Now Daniel Murphy's turn again. He drove in Taylor the first time up in the first. Nobody's waiting much for Bart.
Well, one of the years we had Tom McGlavin, and he was throwing about 78 miles an hour in a spring training game. I mean, is he washed up? Is he done? I mean, we had just signed him to a 4-year deal from the Braves. When the lights went on during the regular season, we forgot totally about his spring training stats. And that's what you expect out of Colon, too.
Skied to right field. Granderson gliding back and hauling in the second out. Terry had a conversation with John Smoltz about giving his pitchers a little extra time before they get cranking in the month of March. And Glavine was a part of that Braves rotation where Bobby Cox would let his guys get ready for the regular season, coming off a shorter offseason compared to most teams.
There's a little different train of thought, but I think for the most part, organizations do it a little differently. But there are some similarities, what the Mets did, to what the Royals did. Royals in particular, they started their live batting practice a little bit later, but then they were starting their regulars on a regular turn when the spring training season started. Mets, they waited a turn through before they got their start. Either way, I think it's the right thing to do. You're trying to get them ready for the start of the season. They might be a little short when it comes to the pitches that they've built up in that first start in April.
Stephen Drew pops one up, shallow left. David Wright looking for it, and Juan Lagares makes the call. We'll head to the bottom of the second. Another run for the Nationals. It's 6-0. Conforto, Flores, and Plawecki due up for the Mets in the home half of the second inning in Tradition Field. Scott Braun and Jim Duquette. Nationals up 6-0. 2 home runs already from the Washington side. And Conforto smacks the first pitch into left field territory. Reed Johnson has the first down. Mets spring training baseball is live with the MLB.com at-bat app. Stay connected all spring with radio broadcasts, video highlights, stats, news, and more. Download MLB.com at-bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your smartphone and tablet. Memo not received. This is a night game. Shades at night?
You have a dog?
I don't.
I do, and she would not like it if we put...
Shake it off, right?
Yeah. Shake it off.
Especially at night. It's just not needed. Now it's Wilmer Flores starting at shortstop tonight. Some positive news for the Mets this week that Asdrubal Cabrera could in fact be ready for the opener against the Royals.
The initial diagnosis was 2 weeks of no activity at all, and because he's progressing enough, he's already started some exercise. The hope is, Sandy Alderson said, maybe ready by opening day, which is more optimistic than I thought it was going to be when I first heard about the injury.
Chopper left side Espinosa. Long throw over to first with plenty of time for the second out.
But Flores is going to play an important role for the Mets. He's going to have to play majority of games, I believe, at third base for David when David is resting that back. So his reps will be important when you see him over there at third base. And he's looked good so far. The reports have been very good in him in his third base play.
Good enough that they were okay this week to waive and then officially release Ruben Tejada, who was the second longest tenured Met, 6 years with the Metropolitans. And now he's free to sign with any ball club. First pitch of the at-bat to Kevin Plawecki with 2 down.
Interesting move for the Mets with Tejada, because if you think back about it, he was their starting shortstop down the stretch. He won the job from Flores and was playing there and would have been playing and starting in the World Series if he hadn't been injured.
He took that job back from Wilmer Flores right at the end of the regular season heading into the postseason.
When the Mets decided to tender him a contract, they didn't have either of their 2 middle infielders. They didn't have Cabrera or Walker, and so they needed protection. Once they got Cabrera, though, I think the days with Ruben in the Mets uniform were numbered.
I wonder how shocked the Mets and Nationals were with Ian Desmond signing for just $8 million over 1 year with the Texas Rangers.
That's one of those guys, again, there's a fluid offseason and a whole process. The asking price for Desmond back in December was a lot higher. It was closer to that $100 million that he turned down by the Nationals last year about this time.
Plawecki stays alive. The dreaded word to a free agent in Major League Baseball these days, qualifying offer.
Well, Desmond certainly impacted by it. In some ways, Cespedes was impacted by it. Not a free agent, something that's going to be negotiated in this new collective bargaining agreement this year, coming up at the end of the season.
Well, what's unfair is that a player can be traded like Cespedes during the season, and then he doesn't have the attachment. Plawecki swings and misses. Ball on the ground, and the play is completed to first base for the strikeout for Lucas Giolito, his first of the night. Nationals still up 6-0 after 2 innings. 5 in the first, 1 in the second for the Nationals off Bartolo Colon. He'll start off the third against Ryan Zimmerman. We'll welcome in the third member of our broadcast crew, Doug Williams. Hey, Doug.
Gentlemen, thanks. Down here in the dugout with the New York Mets, specifically Jacob deGrom right behind me. And one of the interesting things, to state the obvious, is it is nighttime, which is not ordinary here in spring training. First of all, a lot of the players aren't used to it right now because they've been playing day game after day game after day game. But I talked to a few guys before the game. Eric Campbell specifically said, we really would rather be playing at night. They get into a routine during the season. About 90% of the games are at night, and then suddenly spring training hits. You're playing every day. And I talked to Michael Conforto as well, who said basically you keep the same routine you would for a 7 p.m. game, except you bump up a few hours and you just adjust. So it's interesting that they wouldn't imply or somehow apply more night games at the end of spring training, because coming up is the regular season where you're going to be having a lot of night games in a row, guys.
Thanks, Doug. Early bedtimes in March.
We always debated that when we were in the front office. Do you have more night games than day in the spring?
Zimmerman on a line to left. That's Lagares for the first out. Can you do that? Can you make that adjustment to your schedule?
It's really difficult because other teams in Florida didn't want to have the night games, and so you got to have somebody to play. And then a lot of times if you're playing a night game, then there's a quick turnaround tomorrow. As an example, Mets go down or go up to Vieira. It's about an hour and a quarter drive. So that quick turnaround really comes into play at spring training. It's not that easy. So to be consistent is stay on that schedule. And then as you get towards the end, you get maybe some of those exhibition games and you play some night games then.
Zimmerman retired. It's now Chris Heisey's second trip to the plate. He popped up to Neil Walker at second back in the first inning. Sets up the schedule presented by WB Mason. All 1 o'clock starts except for the Yanks game in Tampa on the 22nd. That actually includes the weekend game coming up against the Red Sox with David Price scheduled to start that one.
David Price and Noah Syndergaard on Sunday will be doing that game. After the Monday game, they head on to the west coast of Florida, the Mets do, for a couple overnights. That's a little unusual, too.
Colon painting and striking out Chris Heisey.
Well, finally Colon getting and locating where he's been trying to locate it, which is down and away to right-hander. He's had a hard time with that so far tonight, but he ends up catching Heisey looking. It's his first strikeout of the game. Sorry, second strikeout. Got Overtone looking.
Both called third strikes. Danny Espinosa's first at bat against Colon was a 3-run jack. He's now 3 for 21 in spring training with 3 RBIs. Felipe Rivero warming up, number 73 in the Nationals bullpen. Is that it for Lucas Giolito already?
Might be it for him. Limited on his innings pitched so far this spring. Colon, his last outing was 25 pitches, and Colon already at 44. Giolito's thrown 26. Looks like that would be it for him.
And he says he's ready to go in Major League Baseball right now, although the front office is always going to talk about a few things left for him to work on, developing a changeup that keeps getting stronger.
Yeah, they went through the Steven Strasburg innings pitch limits in a big way a couple of years ago, and they don't want to go through that again. The best way to limit his innings would be in the minor leagues. And they already have 5 quality starters at the Major League level, so look for him to go down to the minor leagues, go to AAA. It's a natural progression for him. They can watch his innings there, and then when they need him, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up sometime in May or in that range, maybe even June. But he will be on the scene. As you mentioned, he wants to come now. I think the Nationals feel like a little bit more seasoned.
There's another called strike 3 for Colon. His third. A 1-2-3 third. Colon settles down. Mets trail 6-0 heading into the home half of the third. Sunset on the beach. Cruise time. Might snow again in the Northeast this weekend. Mets trailing 6-0 to the Washington Nationals as we get set for the home half of the third inning. Felipe Rivero now on the mound for the Nats.
Oh, Rivero was a big part of the bullpen last year for the Nationals. Got 49 games, 48 in the third innings with 43 strikeouts and 11 walks. He's got a power arm. It's lefties and righties out.
"24 years old. Made it to Major League Baseball last season. 49 appearances there.
His emergence allowed them to trade Jerry Blevins to the Mets around spring training. He pitched well last year and ended up taking over that left-handed relief role.
He was signed out of Venezuela, facing Juan Lagares at the bottom of the Mets lineup right now.
Lagares having a good spring, and he's one of those guys. There's more left in that bat. We didn't see the best of Lagares last year.
See him take it right out to left field, and that is way gone for Juan Lagares, connecting to left field for the solo shot, and the Mets are on the board. It's 6-1.
Well, Juan continues to swing a hot bat. It's coming into the game, hitting .389. That's his first home run of the spring and really attacking the baseball here. Fastball tonight. 2-1 pitch. And you see him hit the home run over the left field fence. And that's what you're looking for. Lagares has been using the whole field so far this spring. It's something he got away from last year. There's a 3-1 or 2-1 fastball up. Drives it over the left field fence.
He shed about 20 pounds this offseason. The organization seems pleased about it. Maybe some more speed from him, too, with less weight to carry around. It's Curtis Granderson back to the top of the order for the Mets.
You see that about thigh high and right over the middle of the play. Those are balls that you should hit, but in spring training, the timing isn't always there. Lagares has been locked in so far, though.
That dented the scoreboard. You want to offend the opposing pitcher, smack his name.
It's a long way down here. Not a lot of wind tonight. Still, dimensions about the same as they are at Citi Field down here in Port St. Lucie. Mets haven't had a lot of home runs so far. One of the least in terms of home runs hit in spring training, at least so far.
Curtis Granderson, opposite fields. Reed Johnson on the move towards the line. And that's the first out of the third. 7 home runs for the Mets this spring. It's a small number when you consider that we're a couple weeks in already.
It is a small number, and I'm not worried about the overall power numbers. I do like to see Curtis hitting the ball the other way. It's always a nice approach.
A second turn for David Wright. He liked the first pitch back in the first inning.
One of the strengths that David has had throughout his whole career is hitting left-handers, left-handed pitchers.
And Wright, line point over the shortstop Espinosa. He's 2 for 2 with a couple base hits.
Well, hard to predict a better night than this for David. That pitch was away. You see him pulling off that front side, but had just enough of the barrel to pull the ball over the shortstop's head. And the last time up, that pitch he took on the outside part, he delivered it to right field. This next at bat, he pulled it over the shortstop's head. So good night so far for David in his first game back.
And no concerns on his end of being ready for spring for the regular season, and not just ready, but able to play the field. No DH. He wants to be the third baseman for that Sunday nighter on April 3rd against the Royals.
And no question that his plan is to do that. Big question for me would be, once you put the plan in place, and the Mets have continued to massage that, during the spring training, they projected or hoped 130 games this year. I think that's a little optimistic when you look at it and look at the overall back issue. He's going to have to learn how to back off the workload and not take as many ground balls, not take as many swings, and then mentally come to that understanding that you're actually ready for the ball game. That's, I think, his biggest challenge.
The 1-1 to Cespedes is socked to left center field, and it gets past Reed Johnson. Wright rounding third. He's heading home. The relay, and it'll be cut off by Zimmerman. So Wright slides in safely off the Yoenis Cespedes RBI double to make it 6-2.
Well, there's a lot of firsts that you'd like to see with David, and he ends up scoring from first base all the way, but set up by Cespedes. A little bit of an off-speed pitch. Drills it into the left center field gap just by Reed Johnson in left. And David didn't even hesitate once he saw it go by Johnson. Running free and easy around the base pass, and get that first run from first all the way around to home plate. One of those things that David, on adrenaline, feels fine. We'll see as the game goes on, and then tomorrow how he'll feel. Those are the things that you need to see in this first game tonight.
Tomorrow the Mets are on the road. You figure Wright's not going to travel. Do you think he'll travel for any trips? Maybe the Las Vegas trip at the end of the month?
I think there's a point in time where you're going to want him to play 2 games in a row at some point. And certainly you can accomplish that with 2 games in a row here in the next couple of days. But I do think that he'll have to go on a road trip eventually.
Picked off at second base is Yoenis Cespedes. Caught napping, and Rivero had the quick trigger.
Well, Cespedes wasn't off the base all that far, but
he didn't slide.
Not paying attention there, and you see him sneak in behind him. It's a fairly good, safe lead. Didn't really react all that quickly. Rivero threw it right on the ball.
Does he need to slide there?
Be nice if he went in there head first. On a replay there, it would have been questionable. I still think the baseball got there ahead of time. You're not going to challenge it. You can't challenge it in the spring. I think if he goes in hands first, he gets down below the tag. That is a bang play there. But the bottom line is Cespedes reacting a little bit more towards third, his first step, and that's what the difference was in him getting picked off there.
Lucas Duda has worked the count to 2-2. Is that a spring training hustle back to second base?
It's a spring training lack of focus that you hope you don't see during the course of the season all that much.
But also injury prevention for players in spring training. A head first slide sometimes turns into an injury. We see it all the time during the regular season. Bryce Harper's been injured that way. Is it worth it?
Well, you know what? It's more of a reactionary move. I think from his standpoint, he's probably not going after it quite. And you know, you do go into that mode a little bit here in the spring, middle spring.
Duda beating the shift to the right side as he pulls it down the line for a base hit.
As much as you want to have the adrenaline, it's not always there, but here's Lucas against left-handers. We talked about his improvement against lefties last year, and it's always nice to see him hang in there against a tough lefty. He does there. Nice job. Base hit down that right field line. And again, you mentioned the shift. Going to see plenty more of those shifts, but to me, I don't want him changing his entire approach. Take 20 of those against lefties during the course of the year.
For Lucas, he's reached base twice already tonight. Fourth hit of the inning for the Mets. That's twisting in the right field corner. Tough play for Chris Heisey, who bangs against the wall and completes the inning. But the Mets get one of their runs on Juan Lagares leading off the frame with this blast, and they trail 6-2. The bottom third of the order for Bartolo Colon, who is 3 innings into his 3rd start of the spring. Gave up 5 back in the 1st inning. Coming off a 1-2-3 third. It's Reed Johnson who bounced out back in the 1st inning and connects to right center field. A ton of open real estate. That'll hop over towards the wall. Johnson racing around second. He'll pull up there with a leadoff double.
Oh, nice job there by Cespedes getting the ball in quick fashion. That had triple written all over. Johnson can run a little bit, and the ball's down and away, and he goes with it into right center field, perfectly placed. But you watch Cespedes barehanded get the ball into the cutoff man, preventing him from going to third.
39-year-old non-roster invitee Reed Johnson had foot surgery last year to repair a ruptured tendon. He missed most of the season, played just 17 games for the Nats. This is the catcher, Jose Lobaton. Down the right field line, and that's a fair ball. Easily scoring is Reed Johnson. Lobaton trucking to second base and standing up with an RBI double to make it 7-2 Nationals. Back-to-back doubles.
Lobaton going to be the backup, as you mentioned there, for the Nationals. And first pitch hacking, pulled the ball on the outside part just by Lucas, and no chance for him to even dive for that one and keep it in. Perfectly placed inside that first baseline.
2 batters, 2 doubles in this 4th inning. Bartolo Colon, pitch number 51 on its way. And that's Matt Den Decker, who last spring training was competing for a bench role with the Mets, along with Kirk Nieuwenhuis. They ended up keeping Nieuwenhuis, who's now competing for a job in spring training camp with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Jerry Blevins came over in that trade. It was a nice trade at the end of spring training by Sandy Alderson. Pick up the lefty.
Fisted to Walker for the first out. Monday at 5:30, they both share a love of fast food and television, but will they get along when it comes to talking New York sports? New co-host John Hein joins Loudmouths. Find out if he has the larynx to keep up with the mighty Carlin on Loudmouths Monday at 5:30, only on SNY. Back to the top, and Michael Taylor, a base hit and a home run in his first 2 bats, spanning the first 2 innings. The Hopper warming up. The NL East knows him well. Bert Badenhoff played with the Marlins for quite some time early on in his career.
Last year in Cincinnati, had a down year, but looking to bounce back.
0-1 to Taylor.
And Colon jamming him there. One of those things with Colon, you're not seeing the same type of movement tonight that you normally see in his fastball game, getting his work in. It's been about 87 to 89 with the 2-seamer. Throws at 80, between the 4 and the 2-seamer, throws about 85% of the time during the course of the season.
And the 0-2 is a called strike 3. The 4th time that Colon has done that.
Well, he's finding that fastball, that 2-seamer, to the glove side. That down and away pitch to right-handers. He also got the left-hander Espinosa looking on a similar side pitch. And that's the one thing that was eluding him early that we've seen the adjustment made here. Once he put that first inning behind him, he's pitched more like Colon the last 3 innings.
It's Daniel Murphy poking one foul. "14 home runs was a career high in the regular season, and then he had video game numbers in the DS, especially the CS against that Chicago Cubs team and the World Series. It all tapered off, but when he was hot, he was making history." 0-1 hit high. Plawecki takes off the mask, standing near that Florida sign. Grapefruit League style ball here as Daniel Murphy is retired. Nats up 7-2.
Home soon. Aaron Sturant.
Coming up on Geico Sports Night tonight at 10:30 p.m., Ryan Fitzpatrick and the New York Jets continue to stall in their talks. UConn prepares to take on #1 Kansas tomorrow, and day 2 of NCAA tournament coverage, which included a monumental upset. Michigan State as a 2 seed. Tom Izzo's crew, always so good in the tournament. That's going to be the upset of the year.
Looks like Yale beating Baylor was the upset, but not anymore.
Never seen a 16 beat a 1. Burke Badenhop on the mound. Plenty of time in the National League East. Last season, though, with Cincinnati, ERA close to 4.
He's 33 years old, trying to compete for a bullpen job. He was in Cincinnati, and more of a sinker slider type of pitcher, pitch to contact type of guy. Better have good defense behind him, and he's hopeful that he makes the Nationals pen here.
Conforto at the dish. You're talking about some of the lowest strikeout numbers in the league for a relief pitcher. Last year, 66 1/3 with Cincinnati. You hungry?
Those burgers look good, I will say. Concessions here are pretty good.
You smell it in the press box. Dinner time at Tradition Field. You would think it would be cooler for a night game. It's still 84 degrees. As we're just about hitting 7:15 East Coast time.
Not much breeze tonight. Yep, 84. Balls carrying tonight to all fields.
Isn't this a perfect night for a hitter?
It's a good night for a hitter. And we've seen a couple of the Nationals hitters so far. Mets hoping to heat up a little bit.
And there is a strikeout for Burke Badenhop.
Well, Conforto looked like he was looking more away than in, and that pitch looks like it was in, but umpire behind the home plate. Chris Conroy disagreed, ends up striking out Conforto on a pitch on the inside corner.
Now it's Wilmer Flores after grounding out back in the 2nd inning.
It's one of those pitches for Conforto that he's going to have to handle this year. Opposing pitchers are going to give him a steady diet in on his hands. He's going to have to figure out a way to handle that pitch.
He has so much work to do this month in the field, picking a different position every day to work on. Today it's shortstop.
Kevin Long talked about making a couple minor adjustments with his stance and his swing, and he's been working on that. Looks pretty good. Off-speed pitch there from Badenhop. Flores way out front.
Got it to pop to center field where Michael Taylor is standing for the second out.
Coming into tonight, Flores was having a real hot spring. 455 batting average. Couple of runs, 3 runs batted in. See that those numbers will cool off a little bit, but if you're asking a hitter if he'd rather have a hot spring or a cold spring, you're going to take a hot spring anytime. You don't really pay an awful lot of attention to those numbers, especially with Flores if he's going to be a guy coming off the bench.
Kevin Plawecki hitting well this spring. Entered the game 7 for 25. A couple doubles, a home run, 4 driven in.
One of these decisions the Mets have to make is with Plawecki behind the plate and d'Arnaud. D'Arnaud got the start yesterday. How often will Plawecki play? Will he make the Major League Club as a backup or as a platoon type of situation? And Terry Collins is trying to figure out, is there enough at bats for him 2 or 3 days a week for him to be at the Major League level? And the benefit of that is you give d'Arnaud the extra breather as well, and you make allow him to be fresher behind the plate and offensively. And I really feel like there's not a lot of other options within the organization. Johnny Manel is the extra catcher that they have. I feel like that would be the best way to handle catching duties, at least for the beginning of the season. You can always adjust off of that, but I really feel like they should both make the club, and he'll find the at bat somehow.
Plawecki has developed a strong rapport with the pitching staff. He had plenty of time last year. And one of the advantages for Travis d'Arnaud at the end of last year was that he didn't play a full season. And he was well rested for the end of the year. Plawecki takes ball 4 in tight. Problem for him last year was hitting .213. He had trouble with the breaking pitches. But he feels that he'll learn more at the Major League level at this point in his career.
73 games total for Plawecki, and if he played about that number of games this year, considering that d'Arnaud was injured for a good portion of that, he was playing every day. If he got 73 and he got 90 out of d'Arnaud, somewhere in that range. 100, probably looking at a few more than that for d'Arnaud. Let's say it's 160. Might be a hair optimistic for Plawecki, but I think that'd be a solid season for him overall.
Lagares, weak roller to short. Espinosa goes the short way for the fielder's choice out and end of the inning. Bert Badenhop and the Nationals, the 7-2 lead as the sun sets. The Nationals open up the 5th inning with 3, 4, and 5 due up at the plate. Stephen Drew, Ryan Zimmerman, and Chris Heisey. Bartolo Colon still on the mound. He was last year's opening day man. This year, on Sunday, April 3rd, it will be the Dark Knight. The decision announced yesterday by Terry Collins. 7 innings of work so far in the spring from Harvey. 1 run allowed. Do you think he's amped up to face the team that got him in Game 5 last year of the World Series?
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch that night. He gets that start. It is an honor. There's no doubt. He's deserving of it. Plus, there's a little question with DeGrom. He has a baby due right around that Game 2. But, the importance of getting your top 2 guys that many starts, having them go 1 and 2s. They'll get 34 starts each. And if you look at it over the course of the season, if they stay healthy, 68 of the 162. That's about 41% of the overall starts. And that's what you're expecting out of your 2 horses, to go 34. And then if you throw Syndergaard in, it's likely that 3rd guy gets about 33. Now it ramps up to about 62% of your starts made by your 3 big guns. And that's really, you want to get into winning streaks and winning a division title again. That's the best way to do it. You have your best guys going as often as you can. You're not skipping starts. You're not going on 3 days rest, but giving them the normal rest and having them pitch every 5th day. That's normally what you get.
That's another called strike 3 for Bartolo Colon. All 5 of his Ks have not come from swings.
And they've all been on the glove side or that side of the plate where inside the lefties, outside the righties, it's been down and away. He's been able to locate that much better since the first inning. First inning, a little rough. After that, been much better.
Cruise control for Colon. We see Buddy Carlisle warming up in the Mets pen. Probably take over after this frame for Colon.
This is one of those games with Colon. Remember an Angels game where he gave up 5 in the first and then he settled down after that. It's almost what you saw tonight. Settling down. You take that first inning, put it behind you. Doesn't mean anything in the overall scheme of things. You really look at innings 2 through 5. Focus more on that if you're Colon or even if you're the Mets.
Ryan Zimmerman is 1 for 2. David Wright tested at 3rd, and Zimmerman is 1 for 3.
Well, we saw a couple firsts here tonight with David, a base hit. See him run from 1st to 3rd. Now here's the first ground ball hit to him. All right, not the smoothest, but he made the play. Get that first ground ball, hard hit ball out of the way. It's all easier after that first one.
Ryan Zimmerman was on a similar path. Started spring training late. First some DH time, then over at first base because he hasn't played that position much in his career. And recently said, I really only need 40-ish at-bats in spring training. Otherwise, I'm just giving hits away in March when they don't count.
95 games he played last year for the Nationals. He's someone that's going to have to play more than that if they're going to end up challenging the Mets for the postseason and for the National League East. It's interesting to me because I think if you get 95 games out of David, you're going to feel good about it. But with Zimmerman, you don't. Again, Zimmerman dealing with more leg issues than he is that serious back issue that David has.
Fly ball left field. Lagares looking back over the wall, and Chris Heisey goes deep for the solo home run. It is the 3rd long ball off of Bartolo Colon tonight, and the Nationals grab an 8-2 advantage.
Well, if you're Colon, you're looking to get out of this damage and out of this game here with no more damage. It's a rare breaking ball that we saw out of Colon tonight. Ends up throwing a slider at 79. Heisey, who does have power, he does have home run power. A lot of strikeouts in his swing, but you see a contact there about knee high and plenty of extra hands and transfer behind that ball as he ends up driving it to left field. That's a long home run. We've seen the 3 home runs tonight for Colon. What we saw a little bit on occasion last year when you watched his outings, he Again, prone to that long ball up in his zone a little too much on occasion.
He was victimized by Danny Espinosa back in the first inning for 3 runs. But for Colon, just trying out the off-speed stuff, you might not see him make that pitch in that spot in the regular season. Right to Colon, who makes the play and ends the inning. But another one for the Washington Nationals. The Chris Heisey home run makes it 8-2 Washington. We have the 5th inning recap presented by Ford. 8-2 Nationals. Bartolo Colon charged with all 8 of them, and Danny Espinosa stole the show back in the first with a 3-run shot, and he steals the stat line with the facial hair that's not there anymore. Nick Massett now on the mound.
Well, Massett between the Marlins and the Braves, 28 games, 4.68 ERA. Very similar type stuff to what we saw the previous inning with Burke Badenhop on a non-roster invite for the Nationals, competing for very few roster spots there.
Chris Heisey hit a home run in the previous half inning. He was on the Reds. I believe Massett was on there when Dusty Baker was the manager. So bringing some of his veterans into spring training camp, maybe some of his favorites. It's Granderson chopping one over to first base. Ryan Zimmerman makes the play in stride for the first out.
It's not unusual to do that if you're a manager, experienced manager like Dusty. You have favorites along the way, and you give opportunities to guys on minor league invites. You might as well give them to guys who you know. And certainly when you look at it from Massett's side of things, if he has 2 minor league invites, he's trying to decide between which place to go. He's going to go with the manager that knows him. So it's a perfect fit, and that's how you sign some of these guys, to have depth in your organization. The big question is, do you have an out clause so they can go down in the, so you can get out of it, or does he go to the minors? A lot of these guys, veteran guys don't like going into the minor leagues for a period of time.
Maybe one more at bat for David Wright this evening in his Grapefruit League debut. 2 trips to the plate, 2 singles. Massett's 0-1. Wright jumps back and has just one category to jump to the top of among the significant career ranks in Mets history, and that is home runs. 235, trailing Darryl Strawberry by 17.
I remember him hitting his 200th home run down the right field line. I happened to be in the radio booth filling in for Josh Lewin. Called that one. It wasn't a very good call by me. Not a professional call.
You made the home run call.
I made the home run call. Yeah. Number 200. Yeah. He made fun of me about it too, David.
Well, you've known David for a long time.
Yeah, well, yeah, we drafted him. I mean, I've told the story before, but we get the draft pick from Mike Hampton, who went on to bigger and better things in the school systems in Colorado. Were so good that because of him going and signing with Colorado, the compensation pick we got was David Wright. And it's turned out pretty well for us in the organization when I was there. And yeah, David was one of those guys coming up through the minor leagues, and then I gave him his opportunity when he came up in 2004. Reyes was the year before, 2003. And those two guys were part of those great Mets teams, 06, 07, left side of the infield. Not surprised that Dave's a captain now. As he was coming through the system, he had those leadership abilities then.
The only one in the sport. It's his 12th season in Major League Baseball, 7-time All-Star. He actually won a couple Gold Gloves back there in 2007 and 2008 after the Mets took the NL East division in 06. The one-out payoff offering. Hits sharply to shortstop. Danny Espinosa takes his time, double pumps, and makes the play.
That was quite the lineup back in 06. Reyes and Wright and Delgado and Beltran. Pretty good team there. Cliff Floyd, I think, was a part of that club. Aldo Duca behind the plate.
The starting pitching is certainly better now. And the offense caught up towards the second half of the season for the Mets. Many thanks to Mr. Cespedes.
Not quite the same offense this year or even last year with the World Series club as you saw back in 06. A little bit better balance, I think, with those teams in 06. But, boy, when you have as dominating pitching as the Mets had last year and are looking to have this year, you can go a long way. That's what the expectations are. Look around the game and starting rotation, it's the envy of pretty much every team. There's very few. I think the Mets are, most people would consider #1 starting rotation. A lot of people feel that way. Your own colleague John Smoltz has said it too. The Indians are maybe the next best that I can find, but they don't match up like the Mets do.
A couple years ago, you could make the case that the Washington Nationals had the rotation of the National League. The Tigers, of course, had Scherzer and David Price and Justin Verlander and Anibal Sanchez for a time period, but the Nationals were loaded up. With Strasburg still there. Jordan Zimmerman has now departed for the Tigers. Dusty Baker working with a very different starting rotation, but still solid in the league.
Absolutely. You know, Mets and Nationals were pretty close when it comes to earned run average last year. 4th for the Mets in the National League, Nationals 6th. The Pens were close. The difference was down the stretch. Second half there, Mets were much better. Basically, second half, Mets were 43 and 30, 13 games over 500, while the Nationals limped in 5 under. A 10-game swing after the All-Star break. And really, you can attribute most of that to Cespedes and the deal that the Mets made.
Counts even to Cespedes at 2-2.
See a pretty good fastball there to Cespedes. Acid throwing it by Cespedes a little bit. Cespedes hasn't quite looked right tonight, although he does have that double into the left center field. Looks here late a couple of his at bats here tonight.
Banged up a couple times this week. Lifted to left field, and Reed Johnson is on the run to make the play. Cespedes had a wrist and a hip issue this week, but he's playing tonight. The Mets down 8-2. The new pitcher for the Mets is Buddy Carlisle, fighting for a relief pitching spot on the big league team. And it's Reed Johnson first, who's 1 for 2. He doubled and scored back in the 4th inning. David Wright's Grapefruit League debut, a 2 for 3 performance as he calls it a day. And Doug Williams with David Wright for our interview brought to you by Citi.
Scott, thanks so much. David, that had to have felt good.
Yeah, it's good to get back out there. I've been on this side of it for the last 2 weeks, so it's nice to get out there, break a sweat. Got a ball hit to me and got 3 at-bats, so all in all, successful day.
How'd the back respond to running the bases, fielding your position?
Yeah, right out of the gate, scoring from first, so I think I felt a lot faster than I was actually running, but, good test early on and something that obviously, for me to be full go and play the game that I want to play, I got to be able to run the bases and score from first on a double, so that was a good test.
You've talked a lot about how this is a condition, not necessarily an injury. Does that mean that tomorrow, how you feel tomorrow, the next day after you play, is as important as how you feel at this moment right now?
Yeah, of course. Today was a pretty good day, and give a lot of credit to the medical staff here. I mean, they put in so much time with me on a daily basis to get me ready to play that I'm very thankful for them. So, a lot of hard work, a lot of hours, and glad I can come out here and do what I love to do, and that's play baseball.
And kind of a delayed entry into spring training is something that you're used to. You've done it a few times before. How difficult is it to be at the same level of your competition once opening day arrives?
Well, at opening day, hopefully I can get caught up. But, right now it's obviously impossible to come in the first day and, feel the way that I want to feel. Last at bat, should have put a better swing on it and, hit the ball harder than I did. So those are the types of things that, once I get the timing back, hopefully, produce a little bit more. But I can't complain about today. Felt like I had some really good at bats, saw some pitches, especially that last at bat. Got the full count, see some breaking balls, got some action at third again, and couldn't have scripted any better as far as the workload.
What have you been doing for the most part the first few weeks of spring training to stay in shape and keep yourself ready?
I've been getting some great work, and I think that's one of the pluses of starting games a little bit later was that I got a chance to work with tough one-on-one for really good work and quality work that I wouldn't be able to do if I were preparing for a game. The workload has to be where you got to be fresh for the game, so getting a chance to maybe take extra swings with K-Long and work on some things, or work on some things defensively that I wanted to work on coming into spring. I was able to accomplish that these first couple weeks because I wasn't having to prepare for games. So, I look at that as somewhat of a bonus.
When you have some time away from the big league field, what comes first to you, defense or offense? What comes easier?
I want to hit, and I want to play good defense. I want to be a well-rounded player, but, everybody wants to get the hits. I mean, that's the sexy part of the game. So, I like to work on my offense a heck of a lot more, and I like to work on my defense. But, I know that's one of the things that I take pride in is being a well-rounded player, so defense is part of it.
There's a base hit up the middle by Jose Lobaton. When you look at spring training, a lot of people say spring training is as long as it is for the pitchers to get their work in. They're building up their stamina. Do you use it for its length? Do you think you use it as an opportunity? Hey, it's a long time. We're down here. Might as well get as much as I can out of it.
Of course. And I think that spring training is definitely geared around pitchers. I think that coming into spring, I wanted to, do some research and see exactly, if there was a correlation between the number of at-bats that I get in spring and the starts I get off to in April. And I come to find that, especially when I was younger, I got off to some good starts with 60 at-bats in spring, and I've gotten off to some good starts, recently with, 18 to 20 at-bats during spring. So that kind of put my mind at ease that, hey, when we came up with this plan of kind of starting games halfway through spring, that, I was still confident that I could get the number of at-bats and still feel good heading into April.
How important is playing back-to-back games to you, if at all?
Yeah, very. I think hopefully get that test. I think I'll be off
over towards us.
And then, get back and do back-to-back games. Was it Sunday and Monday? So it'll be a good test.
David Wright, 2 hits in his debut. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, that's Sunday, Monday home games at Tradition Field. David Wright mentioning that he'll play in both. And also mentioning that he did some statistical data research in the offseason to try and find where he's best as far as his spring training at-bats to get cranked for the season.
Interesting looking back on his spring last year. And he got about 55 at-bats. Played in 20 games, hit .291 with an .873 OPS. Pretty solid numbers. Ideally, if you could get that, I think you'd try to duplicate it, but that's not going to happen this year.
That drops from Matt den Dekker, a Bermuda Triangle shot that scores Reed Johnson and makes it 9-2 Nationals. Moving from first to second is Jose Lobaton. Johnson started off the inning with a walk. Lobaton with the base hit moved the runner over, and Matt den Dekker has the RBI.
Well, Rivera, Piazza, Kyle Johnson, all new to the game there, but right now Carlisle having a hard time. He walked the leadoff guy and moved back the back singles. Going back, I was looking at David Wright's numbers back in 2014 in the spring. Same number at bats in 2015, but he hit 200 in 2014. So, again, it's one of those things where he's talking about there's no real correlation. The bottom line, as we talked about earlier, it's a feel thing. He used to be took as many swings as he could, and he got a feel, and he was ready. Now he's going to have to have these new normals. He's going to have to kind of figure it out on the fly.
Back to the top of the order, and Michael Taylor. The 24-year-old is 2 for 3. Turns 25 on March 26th. And that is struck through the hole. And it'll move everyone station to station. A base hit for Taylor. Den Dekker to second, Lobaton to third. Base is full and nobody out in the 6th.
Well, Carlisle, we saw him at the major league level last year. He's trying to compete for that extra bullpen job. He's not doing a great job of it tonight. Fastball up and in. And Taylor's had a couple of at bats where the ball was away. He went the other way. This one was in. He drills it into left field. He's got 3 hits tonight.
One hit for Daniel Murphy came back in the first inning. It was a double that scored Taylor. Part of a 5-run first for the Nats. That's on a line to the new second baseman, T.J. Rivera, for the first out.
Well, good base running here by the Nats runners because it's a line drive. You're taught to freeze. And for the most part, they did. Rivera not able to make that throw to double off anybody, but we'll take that first out. Buddy getting that first out, even though it was a hard hit ball.
That'll bring up Stephen Drew with the bags full. Talk about familiarity with some of the roster for Dusty Baker with his Cincinnati veterans. Mike Rizzo actually drafted Stephen Drew back in 2004 when he was part of the Arizona Diamondbacks front office. Here's Dusty. Some time off from the game, which he enjoyed and took advantage of. He said he made a lot of trips around to watch big sporting events like the NCAA tournament, which he never gets to do because he's usually at spring training, and then started some companies, a solar energy company.
A lot of different interests. Dusty Baker's very well read, very interesting guy.
Zach Thornton warming up in the bullpen. A winery for Dusty as well.
He didn't think he was going to be back in the game. He was doing some broadcasting in the postseason for TBS and in studio, and he got this opportunity. Really, go back to it. The Nationals made an offer to Bud Black, the former manager of the San Diego Padres. They weren't able to come to an agreement.
A roller past T.J. Rivera. That'll score 1. Lobaton is in, and sliding safely is den Dekker. 2 RBI hit for Stephen Drew, and the Nationals are in double figures. It's 11-2.
Well, that's a ball that, if you're Rivera, you'd like to have back. The ball's hit to his left, and it just sped up a little bit. Sometimes you see younger players not used to the speed of the game, and that ball just skipped by him into right field. It's a ball that I don't think they would have turned 2, but certainly should have gotten at least 1 out of it.
Hence the error charged against T.J. Rivera. E4, the first on the board for the Mets. 12 hits tonight for the Nationals. 11 runs to show for it. One of those runs scored by Zimmerman in the first inning.
Not many soft hit balls here so far off Buddy Carlisle. Having a hard time here. The 6 batters he's faced at this point. Carlisle had 11 outings last year, 27 the year before. He's one of those guys that's going to get opportunity up and down, being there in AAA in case there's an injury to a pen or somebody's ineffective.
He had a ton of innings for the Mets back in 2014 in a relief role. Zimmerman smokes that pitch.
He's turned 38 this winter. So in his last couple of seasons here, we'll see if he can hang on and give it one more opportunity. That's his hope. Try to come into a game in this type of situation and keep the ball down in the strike zone, try to get a couple of outs, but so far tonight he's been hit pretty hard.
A true journeyman. The 14 was by far his best season. 1.45 ERA. Gave the Mets 31 innings. In the previous 4 seasons in the majors, he had made 8 appearances. So a resurrected career. And then last year missed most of the season because of hip surgery. Debuted back in 1999 with the Padres. He's been in Japan, plenty of minor league stints. Check out SNY.TV for a Matt Harvey season preview. Find out what to expect from him in 2016, plus the latest on what the rotation may look like for the start of the season on SNY.TV, your online home of all things New York sports. Zimmerman crushes a pitch. It's deep center. And heading back to make the catch is Kyle Johnson. There's a lot of land in center field. That's the second out. Let's take a peek at tonight's pitchers. Brought to you by Cadillac. Lucas Giolito against Bartolo Colon. It's going to be a pitching change. Bartolo went 5 innings, gave up 8 runs, all of them earned. He did strike out 5, all looking. Lucas Giolito, just a couple innings, scoreless. 71 total pitches from Cologne. That's it for Buddy Carlisle in the top of the 6th. We'll tell you about the new man on the mound when we come back. Zach Thornton in the game for the Mets, working in a jam with two down in the top of the 6th. His numbers in Las Vegas last season, the ERA close to 4. Big cut from Chris Heisey. count is 0-2. Heisey homered back in the 5th inning off of Cologne. It's a 3-run 6th inning for the Nationals. Started with Buddy Carlisle. Reed Johnson walked. So did Jose Lobaton. RBI hit for Den Decker. And Michael Taylor connected. Drew on first, Taylor on second. Heisey over the shortstop Flores. And that'll score Michael Taylor. The RBI knock for Chris Heisey. The second run driven in of the day. 12-2 Nats.
Well, Thornton in the game here, and this guy throws across his body a little bit, and you see the 0-2 pitch, a little too much of the plate. Flores short, makes a nice leaping effort, can't come up with it. There's another run in, and it's 12 runs for the Nats. Thornton's a guy who the Mets acquired back in 2014 in the Ike Davis deal. Remember Ike being traded off. He's been call inventory in the minor leagues, and he's a pretty good arm, sinker, slider. Going to be tough though to get much of an opportunity here in the Mets organization.
He might have had a better shot last year of making it onto the big league roster out of spring training. Came up short. And he's 27 years old on May 19th. Or 27 now. He'll turn 28 on the 19th. That's Espinosa, whose night started off with a 3-run home run back in the 1st.
Talked to somebody in the Mets organization. They said, you know, without the depth that the Mets have, this guy might ordinarily have a shot to make the team out of spring training, but he's going to go down to AAA and be a part of that club down there. And you never know. It could be one of those. If he's pitching well, and you get an opportunity, you give him a shot. But it's one of those where not likely, and you're hoping you don't need him, because then you're probably going 4 or 5 deep into your AAA bullpen if that's the case.
Bullpen depth was much more of a question when we were doing games last spring training and talking about who's going to fill the void as a lefty for Josh Edgin. That eventually was fixed when they traded for Jerry Blevins and Alex Torres, although Blevins went down early.
Re-signing Blevins, bringing in Bastardo, trading for Addison Reed. Those are your guys leading up to Familia, and it becomes pretty crowded after that. Robles and Goodell are all going to be in that mix, obviously.
Pedro Avila, number 91 in the pen for the Nationals. 3-run to Espinosa. That'll make the count full. He was bold in mid-December. Said he wants to be the starting shortstop, and he wasn't happy with a decrease in playing time in the second half of last season.
I think that's going to be an interesting conversation that the front office and Dusty are going to have. I think Dusty not wanting to rock the boat, leaning towards Espinosa. The front office trading for Trey Turner and Avila last year. It's actually become the Trey Turner rule in the trade. We'll get into that here after this.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit more about the Nationals' middle infield situation. It's 12-2. Nats in front. A different looking Nationals team heads onto the field in the bottom of the 6th inning, including a new man on the mound, and that's Trevor Gott, who the Nationals acquired from the Angels this offseason.
They picked him up for Escobar, and Gott is one of those guys that has the power arm. You could see him potentially closing at some point for the Angels. Had a terrific season last year in 48 games, a 3.02 earned run average in 47 innings, and Mike Rizzo, the GM, picked him up to be that lead setup guy after trading Drew Storen to the Blue Jays. Gott's going to be the guy that sets up Papelbon, and keep an eye on him. He doesn't have a real physical presence. 6 feet tall. The ball is pretty explosive out of his hand. 93 to 95. Good slider.
It's Lucas Duda at the plate for the 3rd time tonight. He's reached base both times. And we'll see some of the subs start to filter in for the Mets. Neil Walker's day is done, so TJ Rivera is waiting on deck. The 23-year-old righty finds the inside corner against Duda. Start with the outfield changes. Baloo in left field. The new center fielder Keller, number 93, and Odubert in right field. Numbers in the 80s and the 90s, Duke.
Yeah, running out of numbers. Get up to the
Can you
99?
do triple digits?
I don't think I've seen a triple digit guy yet.
Duda going the other way. That's the left fielder Baloo in front of the track for the first out. Infield wise, we'll start at 3rd. Jason Martinson. Shortstop Trey Turner. Scott Sizemore, veteran at 2nd base. And Tyler Moore had a big rookie season for the Nationals a few years back. Jonathan Solano behind the plate. TJ Rivera up next.
It's not the Redskins out there in the outfield. It's the minor leaguers, minor league side. Those numbers get up there into the 90s and 80s. You know where they're coming from. They're coming from the minors. But I think the only thing when you say triple digits.
That is pulled to deep left field. And it's over the wall and gone. TJ Rivera, who had a big season last year in the minors, is having a nice spring at the plate. A solo home run off Trevor Gott. And it's 12-3.
Well, Rivera making up for his lack of infield play the last inning there. The ball he should have made, he got charged with an error. This one ends up getting a nice fastball to the end of the 3rd and ends up turning on it. Nice. That bat keeps it just fair down the left field line. There's that fastball in and up. Right about belt high, but he keeps his hands inside the baseball real nicely and just fair inside left field pole. There he is from the side. Real good balance. Leg raise. See how that pitch comes in on his hands, but he keeps his hands inside. Real nice. Pulls the head of the bat barrel. Drives it over the left field fence.
Making some noise in spring training, just like he did last year in AA and AAA. 364 on base. Did not have much power, but showed us plenty there against one of the top relievers in the game last year. Chopping ball, and it's booted into right field. For Michael Conforto reaching first base, and the Mets creating some traffic. That'll be ruled a hit.
Well, you take that if you're Conforto, but the youngster Turner really didn't play the ball that well. You know it's going to have some extra spin on it. And instead of playing it and coming up through the ball, he ends up playing it back. Takes a hop off of his glove. A little high hop. Conforto has his first hit tonight.
Wilmer's turn. He's 0 for 2.
There's that slider from Gott. mixing things up a little bit after the 2 hits.
Double play depth, and Flores takes advantage. He finds the open space on the left side, and it's his first hit of the evening. Conforto at second.
Well, Wilmer continues to swing the bat well this spring. Hitting the ball where it's pitched. You see the setup on the outside part. The 2-seamer comes inside. Wilmer takes advantage of it, hits it in the hole between third and short, and that'll end his night.
Flores hitting .500 this spring. He's at 12 for 24. Ahmed Rosario, the pinch runner, and a name of the future for this organization. He's their top shortstop prospect. This is Plawecki. Looks like he was hit on the upper left corner of his back, and that'll load up the bases.
Now, luckily for Plawecki, it looked like a slider, and Gott having a hard time commanding his pitches here, and that ball just got away from him and hits him up off the tricep. He's going to stay in the game. Gott getting used to the state of Florida. He's been pitching in Arizona here in his career, and a little drier. These humid nights, you have a hard time getting the grip of the baseball. And a couple of his pitches tonight have gotten away from him.
He grew up in Lexington, Kentucky. He was a Wildcat. The Angels acquired him. Well, the Angels sent him, I should say, to the Nationals in that Yunel Escobar deal. And the Nationals have revamped their bullpen with some veterans like Oliver Perez and Sean Kelly, and then the young fireballer on the mound right now. That was an issue for them in the second half of last year, a team that was 12-17 in the month of August, while the Mets won 20 that month. They ended up with Papelbon. Chemistry-wise, it makes Dusty Baker's job team psychologist in addition to manager.
He's going to have his hands full there's no doubt. Now, he's had some issues over the years with players, let's say big egos. He had Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent in San Francisco along the way, so he's used to handling that.
And Juan Lagares watches a called third strike. It's the second out.
The fans didn't like this call. Here's a fastball. Got to be looking anything close here. And maybe Lagares thought it was a little bit high, but not that bad of a pitch, I didn't think.
We'll see if Alejandro De Aza can take advantage. Subbing in for Curtis Granderson last inning. Randy went 0 for 3.
Piazza in an interesting position, signed here before the Mets got Cespedes, and so he was looking at a lot more playing time here in the winter. And then as the winter went on, they end up getting Cespedes. Now it looks like his playing time is going to be limited. And there have been several scouts in to watch Piazza play this spring. He's having a pretty good one.
At the same time, for the Mets, it's a going for it year. You're De Aza, you're getting paid the same money. You're on a team that's going to contend. If you're the Mets, like we saw with Ruben Tejada, are you trying to shed money, or is this a guy that you could use throughout the season as more depth?
Well, they don't have a lot of outfield depth because Den Decker's gone, Neuenhuis is gone, and so when you look at it, he's a guy that would fit as a bench player and a role player, and you could get him opportunities. He plays all three outfield positions. The idea was around what the Mets had. He was going to platoon with Lagares. So, to deal with the early parts of the start of the season, I certainly could see and envision a scenario that Piazza makes the club.
And he hits righties well. Facing Gott right now.
It's more of a second half type of hitter. He's been a cold weather hasn't been his friend over the years in the first half, but that's when he was playing on a regular basis. So I'm kind of curious to see how the Mets decide to shake this out with their bench. He would fit in that bench role, at least for the time being. I think if the Mets could save a little bit of money and put it towards maybe another bat off the bench from the right side, or a potential reliever, or maybe it's a rainy day closer to July 31st. They've already saved $2.5 on the release of Ruben Tejadas. It's not really as urgent that they save the money. So one of those decisions Terry Collins is going to have to make along with that front office.
His OPS last year against righties was .800. Working with a full count, and the base is full and staying alive. That's spiked against the netting in the Mets dugout. Everyone's checking body parts. I'm good.
Everybody over there by the dugout. Boy, I remember the day when we didn't have those nets in front of the dugout. Players didn't stand up there, but they were sitting in, really almost sitting ducks, sitting back in the dugout. That's become a more protective measure.
How far back was that? Piazza on one hop to first, and the Nationals escape the bases loaded jam, with the Mets tacking on one run and trailing 12-3 after 6. Join the discussion as a panel of team insiders connect with fans via social media to tackle all your questions about the latest Mets news, plus game highlights and up-to-the-minute reports from camp on Mets Talk Live, weeknights at 6, only on SNY. It's Jim Henderson on the mound for the Mets, trying to make it onto the big league roster as a reliever. Former closer with the Milwaukee Brewers. The velocity's ticking up this spring, Jim.
Yeah, we've seen him in the past when he was healthy. He's had some shoulder issues. In the past, though, he was 96, 97. It's not quite the same, but you're starting to see that fastball creep up, 92, 93. He's got the breaking ball, and he's impressed the Mets so far. Only allowed a couple of runs here in the spring. One run, actually, and an ERA sitting there at 1.8. He's in the mix. He's one of those guys that Terry could be using. It's that 6th or 7th inning guy ahead of Reed and ahead of Bastardo.
Randolph Ballou rolls it to first, and that's Mark Krause in the game for the Mets to make the first out. Krause at first. Young, exciting prospect Ahmed Rosario at short. Kelly moving to left field. And only 3 catchers now on the spring training roster for the Mets. Johnny Manel is in there in relief of Plawecki. This is the backup catcher tonight for the Nationals, Jonathan Solano.
It's interesting because you look at Henderson and he's got an out clause to go to the minor leagues, but it's not until June 15th, so he doesn't have to make the roster or you risk losing him.
Quick snap by Henderson to toss it to Kraus and record the second out.
And he has experience as a 33-year-old, and always helps to be able to field your position. And a good finish there to be able to snag that hard liner or hard one-hopper back at him. And you know, there's one of the decisions in that bullpen, that 11th and 12th pitcher that the Mets are making that decision on. He's in that mix with Goodell, Verrett. Those other guys have options. And they're sitting there at 38 guys on a 40-man roster. After releasing Tejada, you can end up putting Zach Wheeler on the 60-day DL. So there is roster space for him. I'm curious to see how the rest of the spring goes. But Henderson's been impressive here in Mets camp.
Steven Perez, the designated hitter, replacing Matt Den Decker. The University of Miami product. He works out with this huge crew in South Florida in the offseason that includes Yonder Alonso, who's now with the Oakland A's, John Jay, who was traded to the San Diego Padres from the St. Louis Cardinals, and the big name in that bunch, Manny Machado. That's who you want to hang around with if you're trying to make it up to the show.
Make yourself better by being around those type of guys and learning things from them. And as you know, had a chance to go in and see some of those guys work out. It's a pretty interesting situation down there in Miami for a lot of those players.
It's not as advanced as you think what they're all doing. They're all working out at a high school. They're taking swings in a cage somewhere in Miami that you never would expect to land. Looks like just a bunch of warehouses, and suddenly there's an indoor hitting cage, very low key, and they're taking video with their iPhones and then evaluating their own swing. Talking about some of the best players in the world, like Manny Machado.
Yeah. One of the top third basemen in the game these days, he and Nolan Arenado. Perez gets to work out with him.
Full count pitch, and that's a strikeout for Jim Henderson. Got to complete it with the throw to first. The Mets do. Good work from Henderson. Big night offensively for the Nationals. Most of it against Bartolo Colon. Still 78 degrees.
We invited you here today to get your
Veteran Aaron Laffey pitched 3 times for the Colorado Rockies last year as the left-hander deals to Eric Campbell at the plate, who replaced David Wright, making his Grapefruit League debut. Mets down 12-3. Campbell trying to earn a spot on this team. Things changed when Ruben Tejada was cut by the Mets a few days ago. Scott Braun along with Jim Duquette. Great to have you with us on an evening game at Tradition Fields. News of Tejada being cut could be a gain for someone like Campbell and also Matt Reynolds, who we haven't seen yet tonight. And Campbell shoots one over second base. That's Scott Sizemore. Not enough air. And Campbell's going for second. Sliding in there.
That's the type of thing that you like out of Campbell when he does get the opportunity. See him get himself a couple hits. Overall numbers last year weren't all that great, but when he's in there, he does take the aggressive swing, and you love the aggressiveness here on the base paths as well. See him kick it into gear there around first base.
Mark Krause on deck. He's a big dude. Kyle Johnson at the plate, the new center fielder for the Mets. He replaced Yoenis Cespedes. Johnson 1 for 9 so far in spring training. It's his 8th game tonight. Mets were off on Wednesday. They played the Marlins yesterday, a 6-5 win. They tagged Jose Fernandez for all 6 of those runs. It was DeGrom and Nats piggybacking, which we could see on day 2 of the season. That's on the bullpen ground, and that's a catch made by Trey Turner for the second out.
Turner going a long way for that ball down into the bullpen. That's a tough area with the bullpens here on the field. Track the ball down. And he's got terrific speed and calls off the third baseman. Nice play there.
That's the first out. Campbell's on second with the leadoff double. And now it's Mark Krause. That off day was the only one for the Mets in March. Little Yoenis Cespedes barbecue in Vero Beach.
You see Krause's numbers there. 289 AAA for the Salt Lake team. Mets bringing him in on a minor league invite. Left-handed bat down there in Vegas. Helped their club win some ball games down there for Wally Backman and the crew.
28 years old. 245 pounds of muscle.
He's a big boy, isn't he?
Spent some time with the Houston Astros during their rebuilding years. Now the Astros, who the Mets will see in about 5 days, they have about 6 guys going for their open first base spot. Krause solidly hit to right field. But there's a man there. That's Randolph Odubel making the catch. The runner does move on. Campbell at third with 2 away.
That's what you're looking for. If you're Krause, you're looking to get up there and take some hacks against the lefty Aaron Laffey. You saw him come in spring training for the Mets last season. Has a little bit of big league time. Laffey does. He's more of a reliever than he's been in starts. Got overall 68 big league starts, and the majority of his time has been in the bullpen.
So here's TJ Rivera. He homered back in the 6th. Nine hits tonight for the Mets. 13 for the Nationals.
Back in the 6th. 1-0 count on Rivera off of the big leaguer Trevor Gott, and a nice job keeping his hands inside the baseball. Barrels up there. 93-mile-an-hour fastball for a home run to left. Nice piece of hitting there by Rivera. Second home run of the night for the Mets.
He pulled it just about as far as you could go, staying fair down the left field line.
It's a hard pitch in on your hands to keep fair. A lot of times you see right-handers hook it, and lefties will do the same on the other side. Kept it just far enough fair to stay inside the foul pole.
Laffey's 2-1. He's taken off the plate. It's 3-1. And that home run came off Trevor Gott. If you're evaluating a player like TJ, it should stand out more to you when he's able to connect off someone like Gott compared to a pitcher with a number in the 90s dealing later on in the game.
Get a few more points if you're Rivera. Now, of course, you gave up one the previous inning on a defensive blunder, but it's nice to be able to make up for it that next inning with the home run. You know, the same kind of evaluation with Henderson in the last inning. He's really facing a lot of the minor leaguers for the Nationals, and it's harder to evaluate. It's very, very difficult to evaluate guys in spring training when you have a lot of positions open for a competition. In theory, it sounds great, but you're facing minor leaguers, and it's just not the same comparison.
Dribbler to third. Jason Martinson's throw is money. The Mets are held scoreless and trail 12-3. On SNY is the Red Sox. Sunday at 1 p.m. scheduled to pitch for Boston is David Price to make the trip to Tradition Fields. Noah Syndergaard pegged to go for the Mets. Juicy pitching matchup
right there. You and I get the chance to call that game again.
And right now it's Addison Reed on the hill for New York, whose season turned around when he joined the Mets. And first he'll deal with Alec Keller. No name on the back. Number 93 for the Nats.
It's really a tale of two seasons last year for Reed. The first part of it really struggled. Ended up going to the minor leagues in Arizona. Had trouble with his command. And the stuff wasn't anywhere near what he was used to as a former closer from the White Sox. And then he figured things out when he went down to the minor leagues, got more directional with his delivery, came up and pitched well enough for the Diamondbacks to go ahead and make a deal. The Mets gave up a couple of their minor league players. One was Miller Diaz, another one Matt Koch, and Reed pitched very, very well down the stretch for the Mets and was added depth in that bullpen along with Tyler Clippard.
I remember when he was first traded, a fan asked him on Twitter, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you dislike the Nationals? And he responded. He said 25. Adding to the NL East battle last year that could brew all season long.
He's still only 27 years old, and There's some question whether the Mets would have tendered him a contract, at least in some people's eyes. I thought because he pitched so well, it's hard to find guys like this. And after they had traded for him, I think one of the interesting things was he did maintain control for another year after this.
Once he came back up from the minor leagues to the Diamondbacks, he started pitching well. A 1.65 ERA and a little over 16 innings. Then he was traded over to the Mets. The momentum started. The Diamondbacks saw it. And it's a D-backs team that actually could use a little more help with their pen. That's a leaping T.J. Rivera making the catch for the first out. Doug Williams, what do you have?
Well, guys, it's been a crazy few days of March Madness, as you mentioned earlier. And this Mets team has a bracket, as you might assume. And for some of them, it's a little bit personal. Logan Verrett, for example, went to Baylor. Kevin Plawecki went to Purdue. And if you know anything about the tournament, it was not a great day for them 2 days ago. Logan Verrett went to Baylor, as I said, and they lost to Yale in the first round. He, however, had a different philosophy than Plawecki. So Verrett had them losing in the second round, took his heart out of it, used his brain. Plawecki had Purdue going all the way. They lost to Arkansas, Little Rock. Plawecki said should have gone with the head over the heart. And Eric Campbell, by the way, gloated a little bit, who's playing third base right now. They call him Soup. He texted them and said, like, guys, that's tough. Both your teams lost, kind of making fun of him. And Verrett's response was, where's Boston College in the tournament? Because, well, Soup went to Boston College, and they did not have their best season in the ACC, guys.
That's right. Doug, Boston College really struggled this year, and that program has been towards the bottom of the standings in the conference for quite some time now. So, yeah, at least you made the dance, but you need to be realistic when you're filling out the bracket. This is Scott Sizemore striking out. Good work by Reed.
Reed with a good fastball and slider. This one's the slide piece here. Gets Sizemore out in front. Swing and miss pitch. Nice block there behind home plate by Johnny Manel. Manel's had a little bit of a interesting battle back there. But Reed coming in and getting 2 quick outs here in the 8th.
And now facing Jason Martinson, a 5th-round pick of the Nationals back in 2010. Went to Texas State, accepted a football scholarship to play there, tore his hamstring on his first catch in his NCAA career, and went to baseball. That roller over to first base, handled by Kraus. 3 up, 3 down. Addison Reed sits down the Nationals, who have a 12-3 lead to get to the bottom of the 8th.
Coming to the Mets.
Last of the eighth, and a new pitcher for the Nationals, Rafael Martin, 32 years old, of San Fernando, California. Scott Braun along with Jim Duquette, Doug Williams downstairs on the field. Mets trailing the Nationals 12-3. Bartolo Colon giving up 8 runs in his outing and never changing his expression.
In typical Colon fashion. But again, that was one of those things we saw it on occasion when he gave up the long ball. It happened in bunches there last year. And I think the thing that you try to take away from Colon tonight was his work after the first inning. It was much better. You know, he did give up a couple home runs after that. That first was a little bit of a struggle, but he got his pitches in and settled down, made the pitches, especially to his glove side, down and away. Got a couple guys, about 5 guys in terms of strikeouts, caught them all looking. And that's the thing you've got to build on if you're Colon.
Michael Conforto facing a 2-2 count. I don't think Terry's concerned about Bartolo maybe trying some things out as well. Throwing an off-speed pitch where he's about 80-something% fastballs. Conforto, a strikeout victim of Martin. Trying an off-speed pitch in a situation where maybe he wouldn't go with that ball in the regular season. Familia warming up.
He got beat by a couple of his off-speed pitches, no doubt. The slider in particular. It's one that he doesn't throw much. He throws it 7%, 8% of the time during the course of the season. But this is the time where you might as well try to find that feel. You're going to want it for the start of the year, and so this is where you try things here in spring training.
First pitch, Ahmed Rosario likes it. Back to right field. Odubert makes the catch. Quick 2 outs for Martin.
That's the only thing that's lacking right now in Rosario's game is that command of the strike zone. We talk about his a little bit more aggressiveness at the plate than a guy like Dominic Smith, their other top position player prospect at first. Rosario a little bit more of a free swinger. We'll see what the Mets decide, if they're going to keep him in St. Lucie or the idea of him maybe going to Binghamton this year. So you're getting a good look at him. You're going to see him at the shortstop position here real soon in the next couple seasons.
Nice asset to have in the organization. This is Johnny Manel. Martin back in 2015, a 3.21 ERA as a reliever in AAA. He was just an A-ball back in 2014. Moved up quickly, one step away from the big league level. And almost had a quick inning. That one gets past Tyler Moore at first base. Being error charged against the first baseman. And one aboard with 2 outs, Johnny Manel.
Well, not a very good effort here from Tyler Moore. He's played on the outfield too, and you know, if he's competing for an extra position on the bench, right-handed bats and pop, he's going to have to play a little bit better defense there. He's not going to get a lot of time, but Clint Robinson's the other guy over there first. He played very well last year, so we'll see how it shakes out. They decide to keep both guys or not. I think Moore's out of options, so that gives him a little bit of an advantage. He's got some power. Not a real good defensive play there.
Now it's Ty Kelly with Manel on first. Dusty Baker certainly has some extra run creation at the top of his lineup. Something that was very important to the Washington Nationals in the offseason was creating a little more action at the top of their lineup for Bryce Harper to take advantage of.
A little bit more action, a little bit more contact. They struck out over 1,300 times as a team last year. And that's one of the things they point to, their inconsistency on the offense. And there's a concerted effort to bring in Ben Revere, bring in Daniel Murphy, make better contact, and like you said, get on base ahead of Bryce Harper. Harper should have a lot more traffic ahead of him this year.
That should be 1 and 2 in the lineup. Revere, Murphy, then Harper, and Zimmerman.
And then Zimmerman, most likely. You got 3 lefties in a row there, but I think that's ideal against the right-handers. That's the way that Dusty's leaning, at least right now. You could slot Rendon in there and put Murph 5th. That's another idea that they've toyed with.
Martinson makes the catch in foul territory, and the Mets are retired by Martin. 12-3 Nationals, bottom 8 or top 9 next.
Before the Cadillac ATS-V
Less than 2 hours away from Geico Sports Night tonight at 10:30 p.m. on SNY, including Muhammad Wilkerson on the trading block ? UConn women prepping for another championship run as usual, and round one highlights of the NCAA tournament, Syracuse and Villanova included. Ninth inning, that means Jerry's Familia, despite the Mets down 12-3 at this point to the Nationals. And he's on the mound to face Tyler Moore, who made the error at first base in the previous half inning. No runs in the last two frames in this game.
You look at Familia from last season, and boy, did he have a terrific year. Turned into one of the more dominant closers in the game. He got a heavy workload, 76 games, 78 innings. That's a lot of work for a closer. And a couple of those outings were multiple innings, saves, and opportunities. So hopefully with the added depth for the Mets this year, you're going to see him not get as much work and only come in those opportunities where they have a chance to win. It's not a multi-inning or multi-out save. I'm not against the 4-out or 5-outs saves, but you don't want to do it that often, at least during the course of the season. Maybe towards the end, important games, important matchups. You want to be able to save that arm for the postseason if you can.
More ammo for the Mets this year, so they don't have to put him in those situations.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I think you go with Reed at the start on those type of situations. A little bit more depth. Robles maybe gets an opportunity, but any save situation, games on the line. It's hard to find much better than Familia and how good he was. And really, progress that he made from that slider to the split finger, that really made his season last year and made him dominant. With 94-mile-an-hour split finger pitch is devastating.
That is so much faster than any split finger that you'll see in the world. Upstairs to Moore, it's 2-2.
I still remember Hall of Famer Cal Ripken in the postseason on one of the Mets games and almost in disbelief saying that was a 94-mile-an-hour split. We'd been watching it for the whole second half, but when you first see it, it's hard to even comprehend the throw that way.
It's 95 from Familia, his first strikeout.
Pretty easy gas here. It's a great shot there. A little two-seam fastball, and see that late life down in the strike zone, and that swing and miss two-seam pitch that is really his signature pitch.
Randolph Odubert batting next for the Nationals. And the average split finger fastball is about 84 miles per hour. Talking 10 miles per hour of juice from Familia compared to the average mark.
And it's really in the grip. You know, he gripped the ball where the horseshoe on the baseball was. It's not that wide grip where you see the ball slotted in between his fingers, and that allows him to. He still gets really good depth and movement.
And he slices up a bat. And that's the second out. It's TJ Rivera making the throw over to Krause at first.
But that mix, two-seam fastball, which is what you see right there, and runs in on the right-hander, man. That is a tough pitch. If you're a minor league hitter like Odubert, you got really no chance there. That bat shattered out to the infield.
Some wood chopping by Familia, a man of many weapons.
What I like out of this, Familia, you come into this situation, it's a 9-run deficit. You're coming into the ninth. You really don't have an awful lot of adrenaline out there, but he's getting his work in. The stuff is still pretty good quality right now.
Now it's Trey Turner at the plate. A few innings ago, you mentioned the Trey Turner rule now created just because of this young gentleman.
Well, he got traded, and he was a player to be named later, and you couldn't trade that player until it was a year after he'd signed his contract. It was the first year he was in the amateur draft of 2014. Had to wait a full season before he was reassigned to the Nationals. So he was, in fact, it had leaked out he was a part of the Nationals club, but he was in the Padres organization until they finally agreed to go ahead and move him. And since then, they've changed the rule where you can trade a pick from the previous draft. You have to wait 6 months, I believe, is what the date is.
The crazy thing is he was playing in the minor league system of the San Diego Padres knowing that he was going to be a Washington National. So the way that they took care of him, the Padres in the minor leagues, was heavily scrutinized by a team like the Nats because he was eventually going to become their property. It just wasn't official yet.
It's funny, I went through that one time. I was the farm director here for the Mets. Our first round pick the previous year was part of the trade for Mike Piazza. Jeff Getz was the name, left-handed pitcher. We got out of Sarasota High School. In the first 2 months, until actually it was about a month, he was in our organization, and we had to treat him just the same way as we would a normal kid. Not easy. The player handled it very well.
Amelia made that 9th inning look easy. He fans the young Turner, and the Mets have one more chance.
We invite
It's the last of the 9th. Eric Davis is the new pitcher for the Washington Nationals, who missed all of 2014 after undergoing Tommy John surgery, and we weren't even sure if we were going to see him in spring training, but he has progressed quickly, and he'll face Alejandro Piazza, the first batter, in the bottom of the 9th, with the Mets trailing 12-3, 6 runs in the first 2 innings for the Nationals, including a 5-run first against Bartolo Colon. Piazza bounced out in the 6th. He replaced Curtis Granderson in right field. He connects. It's a few feet foul towards the right side behind 0-2. You better get to Citi Field Saturday night, April 9th, when the Mets take on the Phillies. It's the first fireworks night of 2016, presented by Coca-Cola. After the game, fans can enjoy an exciting fireworks show that will light up the sky. For tickets, visit Mets.com/fireworks. Weird schedule to start for the Mets. I've never seen the way a schedule has begun for a team quite like what we're going to see with the New York Mets against Kansas City, a Sunday nighter. They'll take a day off on Monday, play again Tuesday, then 2 days off before they face the Phillies at home. Doesn't even feel like real baseball until about a week in for this team because of the time that they'll have to rest in between.
Very unusual, that 3 off days in that first week, and not ideal, but the Mets have lined up their pitching where at least the first 2 guys are going to go and probably back up the starter with.
Piazza goes up the middle. A base hit to lead off the bottom of the 9th.
Steven Matt's likely to get a bullpen outing in that game 2 from the sounds of it. But Piazza continuing his hot spring. And one thing he does, even when he's off balance, keeps the bat in the strike zone. A nice amount of time and pitched down the zone, but kept his hands back real nice and uses the middle of the field as he hits the ground ball up the middle for his first hit of the game. Came into the game hitting .455, so that'll keep his average up high.
Playing with something to prove, just like Eric Campbell, who doubled to right center field back in the 7th inning. You can look at it at the beginning of the season for the Mets as something difficult to deal with because you don't really get your continuity and your timing of the regular season down. But the Mets seem to be trying to take advantage with their pitching staff because of the lack of games at the beginning of the year and what they're able to do to bring some players out of the bullpen almost like postseason style.
Yeah, and remember, they lose the first 2 games to suspension for Robles. He's out for those 2, so they have to go short. And, you know, it kind of impacts how you might configure the roster a little bit with the 24 guys. You don't need as much pitching. And there's, consequently, you have a question about with DeGrom. He's got a baby on the way for game 2. Syndergaard could certainly make that start, but you have Matz to back him up. So there's plenty of pitching. It's just a matter of do you want to go with an extra position player that you really don't need because you're playing in an American League club. It's really weird. You got an interleague play on the road against the team you lost to in the World Series. The whole thing is a little bit odd.
All lines up with the TV schedule to start the year. That's the game on the 3rd against the Royals. They'll also be coming off a trip to Las Vegas against the Chicago Cubs, where they'll play 2, still an exhibition play.
The only team they're missing there from the postseason are the Dodgers. Guess they couldn't swing a trip to Arizona to play them before the season, but
it's a walk. Campbell going to first, and that moves Piazza to second base. A little trouble brewing for Eric Davis.
They'll sit through the Kansas City celebration of the World Series flag and whatever festivities they have, and do 2 days of that. We'll be sick of that after the first day.
That could be nice motivation to get you going for the start of the season. And all you have to do is look at what the Royals went through 2 years back, falling in Game 7 to Madison Bumgarner. And then you wonder how a team responds when they get 1 game away from a World Series ring. And the next year, the Royals went the distance.
And you don't see many teams go back-to-back to the World Series. You saw the Royals, and that's what the Mets will be trying to do for sure.
Sky-high right field, hit off the bat of Kyle Johnson. Dubert makes the catch. And tagging up is Piazza. So now runners on first and third. It's Piazza 90 feet away from scoring. And Campbell stays put at first, with 1 down in the bottom of the 9th. Mark Krause batting next.
Well, the silver lining on the pitching tonight was really the bullpen. The guys that are going to be likely in the bullpen. Addison Reed and Familia pitch well. Henderson in the mix for one of the final spots in the bullpen. He pitched very well. So those are the silver lining tonight, despite the score. Of course, on the offensive side, when you see David Wright in his first game get 2 hits and score from first on a double and get a hard ground ball hit to him and make the play, that's always nice to see as well.
And Wright had a discussion with Doug Williams after he was taken out, talking about even on his 3rd at bat, he made contact, didn't hit it quite the way that he wanted to, but he was frustrated, and just right from the start, not worried about being rusty by any means, and not settling for a 2-for-3 night.
I always like that part of what David brings to the equation. And listen, when you get this complex, really plays into what David needed to do, getting at bats out in the minor leagues, trying to get your timing down. So it did look like he had missed a lot of time. It looked like he'd been in the lineup for the entire spring, and I know Terry Collins certainly happy with the individual performance there of David.
They also got to look, because we always talk about how much these teams face each other in spring training, and the Nats and the Mets are going to have huge games this year. They received a look at Lucas Giolito, which for many Mets was probably the first time they saw him, and he could be the Nats version of Noah Syndergaard when he comes up to the big leagues, say in June.
Only allowed 1 hit, struck out 1, had 3 ground ball outs, but really was fairly dominant. And you haven't seen a guy like that. He throws as hard as he does and a good breaking ball. It's not that easy. So yeah, it's not bad that the Mets got a little bit of a scouting report that they'll have to maybe use down the road and later in the summer.
Giolito faced 8 Mets in his first couple innings. But even just getting that 1 at bat, because how often do you see a fireballer come up, a big prospect from the minor leagues where a veteran hasn't seen him, and they say, wow, after the first game. At least they've seen what he looks like on the mound, his pitches, and even if you're just sitting in the dugout to see what he brings to the table.
Well, it helps. It definitely helps, at least going into that game. When you look at the guys who faced him, everybody in the lineup, 1 through 8 anyway, faced Giolito. He got 1 at bat, and it does. It gives you a little bit of an advantage. Of course, Giolito wasn't throwing as hard as what we're going to see during the course of the summer, too, but you get an idea of his the breaking ball. I think that does give you at least an idea. Match up the reports with the stuff.
Ball 4 to Mark Krause. It loads up the bags. Best hit of the night. Maybe you could make a case for 2. Juan Lagares' home run in the 3rd. And what T.J. Rivera did back in the 6th inning, crushing a ball to left field for a solo shot. And now he comes up with the bases loaded. The Mets showing some patience against Eric Davis, who's coming off Tommy John surgery, probably trying to get his location back.
Yep, struggling with his command, no doubt. A couple of walks here and been erratic. Mets making a little bit of a run. They had not a lot of home runs here. We talked about it earlier. 6 home runs coming into the game tonight here in the spring. Picked up 2 on the Lagares and Rivera homers.
Rivera going for the sky, and it's 1-1.
Why not? Be aggressive with the bases loaded.
How much would the Mets value a walk because of the way that the organization preaches patience in a 12-3 game in the 9th inning from a player who's trying to make a statement?
Well, I think that philosophy certainly goes from top to bottom. And when you look at players in your minor league system anyway, they're trying to continue that. Get your pitch, make sure it's the right pitch, and put a good swing on it. Otherwise, take it. Gets mistaken a little bit by trying to draw walks, I think, but
well, he wasn't waiting. That's strike 3 to Rivera, and the Mets are 1 out away.
Well, Martin coming in. A little off-speed pitch there, looked like a slider, and Rivera out in front of that pitch for a strikeout. He's 1 for 3 on the night.
A full day of at-bats for Michael Conforto. His lone hit coming in the 6th.
Well, Conforto getting the DH spot tonight in the lineup, and he gets 4 at-bats. He'll get his 5th at-bat now. And again, when you're looking to make some adjustments in the stance, which is what he was doing the early part of the spring, try to get as many at-bats as you can to make sure you're comfortable.
And he crushes a pitch to right field. If it's fair, it's gone, and it is a grand slam for Michael Conforto in the 9th inning.
Well, the 5th at bat for Conforto, you always like to see when you hit with the bases loaded. He touched anything. Doesn't matter if it's a minor league pitcher or major league pitcher. When you're working on things like he has been over the past 2 weeks, it's nice to be able to put a nice swing on this. And there's a pitch on the inner third. We talked about he's going to have to handle that. Looked like an off-speed pitch out in front of him. He put a nice pass on it and ends up drilling it into right field for the grand slam. See him from the side. He stayed back nice. You see the good balance. Strong lower half, using the lower half to drive the ball over the fence. I think he has a chance to hit 20-plus home runs this year.
Ahmed Rosario fouls one off to the right side, and he's behind 0-2.
Drills that thing down the right field line.
Go for it. False start.
Let the kid get it anyway. His story afterwards is he did it on purpose, even though we know he didn't.
Like the kid won the ball on the race.
I let him.
On the berm.
I let the kid go.
Great acting in right field. This chopper off the bat of Ahmed Rosario ends the game. But not before we saw Michael Conforto go deep. Faced 5 different pitchers tonight. And Conforto saved the best for last. The Mets do fall to the Nationals by a final score of 12-7.
Well, you like to see the offense by the Mets, even though it was late. You saw 3 home runs tonight. A couple of the guys that are going to factor into it, Lagares and Conforto. Well, I think David Wright was a story tonight. 2 hits in his first game back. And we'll see how he feels tomorrow in the next couple of days. And Cologne certainly didn't have it on the pitching front. The bullpen did a terrific job. Some of those guys you're going to hear more of. Obviously, Reed and Familia, but Jim Henderson, keep an eye and an ear out for Jim Henderson. He pitched well tonight to get himself into the mix in the bullpen.
A few home runs for the Nationals early off Bartolo Colon, who was pegged for 8 runs. Lagares with a solo home run in the 3rd, the grand slam from Conforto, and David Wright said that he'll have tomorrow off and then play 2 in a row. Red Sox and Marlins, both of those games will be on SNY. And New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by WB Mason, the official office supply company of the Mets. Who but WB Mason? By Mazda, driving matters. By Geico, the #1 insurer in the New York market. And by Bob's Discount Furniture Shop, in store or online at mybobs.com. It's a final at Tradition Field in Port St. Lucie. The Nationals take down the Mets with some early action on the base paths. 12-7. Sunday on SNY, the Red Sox are in town to take on the Mets. That's a team that made a ton of changes. Duke and I will address when we meet up at 1 p.m. David Price is pegged to start that game against Noah Syndergaard. It's going to do it from Tradition Field. For Doug Williams and Jim Duquette, I am Scott Braun. Mets lose at 12-7. See you on Sunday.
I'm on the